The positivist approach. Positivism, which is the most widely practiced research approach in social science, regards the nature of social reality as independent of consciousness, and therefore positivists believe social reality can be studied independently of the researcher. Positivist researchers assume that social life can be represented by using numbers. When they manipulate the numbers according to the law of statistics, the numbers reveal features of social reality. They generally see this style of experimentation and research as the ideal method, looking at the causes and effects of particular relationships, such as the relationship between educational attainment and yearly salary. Positivists employ nomothetic rather than ideographic research methods. Nomothetic methodology relies on explanations that use law or law-like principles, things like hard facts and numerical data. Positivist researchers use quantitative research techniques such as existing official statistics, structured interviews, and questionnaires with close-ended questions. They tend to view these methods of data collection as approximations of the experiment for situations where an experiment is impossible, seeing them as a starting point from where to begin their own research. Positivist researchers advocate value-free science, seek precise quantitative measures, test causal theories with existing official statistics and data, and believe in the importance of replicating studies. They manipulate numbers that represent empirical facts to test their theories and hypotheses. Positivists rely on deductive methods of inquiry. These quantitative researchers do not begin data analysis until they have collected all their raw data and condensed all the information into numerical and statistical data. Later, they manipulate these figures in order to see patterns or relationships. Positivists emphasize replication within research, which means their study is peer-reviewed and other researchers are able to duplicate or find similar results to the original research. For positivists, replication is the ultimate test of knowledge, as positivists believe that different observers looking at the same facts should get the same results if ideas are specified, facts and data precisely measured, and the standards of objective research are followed. Features of reductionism, predictability, and control are major hallmarks of positivist research methodology. Events are produced by laws and therefore are repeatable.
The interpretive approach. Groovy. Interpretivists believe that reality is subjective and socially constructed. Interpretivists feel one cannot simply study social reality using the same principles employed by the natural sciences. Rather, they feel the necessity to address human uniqueness within their research. They utilize inductive reasoning within their research, and their conclusions suggest truth but do not ensure it. They aim to create new concepts and theories by blending together empirical evidence and abstract concepts. They're about the creation of theories, and not simply the testing of theories, as those positivists are. These researchers, they adopt a version of the constructivist view of social reality, denoting that human social life is based less on objective, hard, factual reality, and more on the ideas and the beliefs and the perceptions that people hold subjectively about reality. In other words, they feel that people socially interact and respond to their lived experiences based on what they believe to be real rather than simply what is objectively real. So this means that social scientists will be able to understand social life only if they study how people go about constructing their own social reality. Interpretivists, they largely use an inductive research approach and use ideographic rather than nomotheic methods of data collection. Ideographic data collection is a qualitative research approach which relies on specific descriptions and explanations of social reality in forms of images, pictures, symbols, surveys, interviews, and open-ended questionnaires, for example. These often represent people's actions and events within social reality. The raw data, it usually consists of their ideographic data, which they then label and code and then categorize. trying to identify themes and patterns and relationships within the data. So they make their theory as they go along within their data, it unfolds. And these idiographic methods, they're relatively imprecise, spread out, context-based, and they can have more than one meaning. But for interpretive researchers, it's all about the creation of theory, which it develops and, as I mentioned, is pieced together as the research progresses. These qualitative researchers, they rarely use statistical analysis, and their data analysis is less standardized. But this does not mean that qualitative data analysis is based on vague impressions. It can be systematic and logically rigorous, although it is a different form from quantitative or statistical analysis. Interpretivists, they view social reality as very fluid, and that all moments are unique. Nothing repeats itself. For most humans, social reality largely involves shifting perceptions, which are constantly changing, constructing, testing, and reinforcing. And these have become embedded in social and cultural traditions or institutions. Interpretive researchers, they are skeptical of the positivists' attempts to produce precise, quantitative measures of objective facts. For the most part, qualitative researchers do not see replication as the ultimate test of knowledge, as those positivists do. Rather, instead, we place an emphasis on Verstein. Now, Verstein, or empathetic understanding, is the desire of a researcher to view social reality from the subjective outlook of the individuals under study. This empathetic ability aims to accurately and validly demonstrate their inner and personal perspective of their subjects. Peace.
I would use probability sampling techniques, such as simple random, stratified, or cluster sampling.
Well, I would be likely to use non-probability sampling techniques, such as quota, snowball, or sequential.
I would devise a hypothesis, for example, that generally heterosexual men would gaze at a female's breasts first and foremost.
Well, I think it's a good idea to get down and dirty and observe the masses. I think in this case I would perform a covert field study, wherein I would be able to observe the eye movements and the gazes of the men towards the females on the street.
I prefer techniques wherein I can seek empirical support and test my hypotheses. I would most likely test my hypotheses in a laboratory setting wherein I could set up a stringent experiment and use the technique of inter-rater reliability, where two people would tally the outcomes of men's eye movements towards images or live females and compare it to a controlled condition of their gazes towards another man's body.
Well, I may instead choose to do a focus group or a personal interview or even circulate a survey or open-ended questionnaire, which could simply ask the respondents of where on a female's body they first gaze.
Prior to the experiment, I may choose to circulate a closed-ended questionnaire to the participants, asking them their perception of their own and their peers' gazing tendencies.
Well, as I conduct my research and collect my data, I would find my theory would begin to formulate, take shape, and unravel.
Later on, I would analyze my results and devise statistical inferences. I could then go on to publish my own results in a peer-reviewed journal and could define and explain the details of my methodology, which could allow for a replication by other researchers.
Well, I would later perhaps think about writing an article regarding the tendencies of heterosexual men and their eye movement towards females and speak about the social implications within.
The positivists believe the nature of reality can be studied independently of the researcher. Thus their epistemological research relationship consists of objectivity and remaining separated and distant from what is being studied. The ontology of the positivist approach is that reality is an objective phenomenon and they perceive the world as existing independently of human existence and consciousness. Positivists feel the world is ordered, structured, and governed by physical laws.
The preferred, epistemological relationship of the interpretive approach involves immersing themselves in what they are studying or researching. While collecting data, these researchers begin to see patterns and themes within their raw data emerging, and thus, they prefer to develop their theories as their research unfolds. The ontology of the interpretive approach is that the nature of reality is socially constructed and interpreted. They propose individuals internalize the world and reality subjectively from their surroundings, lived experiences, and social and cultural institutions. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. Stay groovy.